Sierra Juice, Taste of Salon.
It's TGIF. Thank God it's Friday, the day most workers do smile about. Good afternoon, welcome to the Friday edition of your News and Current Affairs show. This day coming to you live on AYV television on channel 33 and on the radio on 101.6 FM, online on www.ayvnews.com, on our Facebook page AYVSL. As usual, this day is your News and Current Affairs show that brings news to your doorstep. You can also be part of the show later on by calling on to the number 025-271-959, 025-271-959 when the phone line opens. Well, in today's edition of the show of these days, Sierra Leone for the first time will host the Confederation of West African Youth Leadership Forum and Awards 2019 from March 30 to the 31st at the Golden Tube Hotel in Freetown on the theme New Leaders, New Africa. So how significant is this conference for youth in Sierra Leone? Well, in the studio this afternoon to discuss the all-important issue, I have been joined by Prince Ebrahim, who is the chairman for the Confederation of West African Youth. Good afternoon, welcome to the show, Mr. Chairman.
Good afternoon.
And welcome to Sierra Leone.
Thank you. Thank you. It's a pleasure.
All right. Let's start the interview by you tell us where it all started and, been created this whole platform for young people.
Well, first of all, I think I'm going to have to give the credit to our executive director, Saloko, and where did it actually begin from is a common challenge that we have across the continent. The youth for the past half of the century had been pretty much overshadowed in terms of their ability to excel, in terms of their social standing, of their recognitions that they do towards the socio-economic development of each country, sub-regional or even at multilateral African Union level. So in view of that, the youth felt that, just as in the case of AYC, we ought to now recognize and reward these actors who are significantly impacting our socio-economic development from different strides, be it agriculture, media, entertainment, banking, telecom, and ensure that these young potentials are always highlighted at the forefront of the Africa leaping forward. So the leapfrog position of Africa, I think that's where the Confederation of West African Youth came in as an institution, solid board structure, well diverse, and we moved forward with it. 2018 it was Nigeria. 2019 was in, 2018 was in Ghana. Previous year was in Lagos, Nigeria. This year, Sierra Leone.
So Paul, why Sierra Leone?
Well, look, Sierra Leone has, when you look at the demographic dividend of Sierra Leone has naturally leapfrog ahead of very many West African countries in particular. Since the new government came into being under the leadership of President Modabio, we've seen for the first time in history of our continent that a young man under the age of 40 was to head an anti-corruption unit. Of course, the chairman of, beg your pardon, this presidential spokesman equally is a youth. You yourself, you are a youth. This television channel that we are currently discussing these significant, important matters are under the leadership of the youth. So Sierra Leone has actually ticked all the boxes of the necessity that these August gathering must be held here. Mind you, Gambia had competed against Sierra Leone and Senegal, but naturally Sierra Leone had to be the front winner in among the 15 West African countries. So I think that is to be credited to the Sierra Leoneans, and in terms of their resolve, coming together in moving their country forward for the benefit of all and sundry.
It's a very significant conference. Could it mean this conference will provide a solution when it comes into Sierra Leonean youth? Because according to UNDP, estimated there are about some 800,000 Sierra Leonean youths who are currently unemployed. So do you think this will provide a solution when it comes into young people belonging?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think this is where the commonalities comes in. The problems in Sierra Leone is exactly the same problem in Nigeria, is exactly the same problem in Gambia, and of course across the length and breadth of the economic community of West African states. When you look at Sierra Leone within the wider picture itself, we know that Sierra Leone, including the rest of West African countries, has over 200 million youth across West Africa. Let's even assume that within these 60% are to be unemployed, because I don't want to look at the problem of our region as just a Sierra Leonean problem. Unemployment is a common problem across this length and breadth of our region. The Confederation of West African Youth this year, as a result of this event that will be held here, one of the key focus is bringing about solutions to our challenges that we have, common challenges, which is unemployment. For the first time in the history of our continent, and for the first time in the history of our region, the first time in the history of Sierra Leone, the West African youth had came up with a resolve to set up the first West African Confederation of Youth Fishing. So the Confederation of West African Youth Fisheries Cooperative. This fisheries cooperative is going to significantly create employment opportunities. Through this process, this is going to be very historical in the history of our region. During the Confederation of West African Youths event here in Sierra Leone, we will announce the establishment of the West African Coordinated Cooperative, Fishing Cooperative. This cooperative will help finance the boats, the fishing trawlers and the boats that they need. It will help finance the landing site, the facilities where these fish will be processed and packaged, to ensure that these packaging are in line with European Union standard, which is HACCP, the ability of Sierra Leonean youth to earn money through our resources, natural resources, that is the sea. Not only supplying to the Sierra Leoneans within Sierra Leone, but also ability to export it outside. So, two key significant contributing factors that the youth will gain from this. A is the employment. B, these will also impact the overall economy, because now it means that the ordinary Sierra Leonean can now afford a price of normal fish, which had been spiking up owing to the illegal fishing. Do you know that our region is losing over $2.7 billion every single year on illegal fishing?
Sure, and Sierra Leone is quite high.
Absolutely.
In Sierra Leone.
Absolutely. So we feel that with that sort of a pragmatic, holistic approach, the fact that Sierra Leone will be the first country in Africa to host a regional youth-driven initiative, I'm expecting the world to come in support of this. Sierra Leone is naturally positioned within West Africa. It's a coastal country that is affected by the illegal fishing. But to be able to balance the benefit of the youth, we feel that there will be a lot of youth employment into this particular initiative. So by tomorrow, once this announcement is done, we believe that a lot of Sierra Leonean youths would also be very much engaged into this initiative. And by doing so, they will be able to earn income. And by earning income, they have stability. Disposable household income start raising up. We have a political stability now under the leadership of President Madabio. The enabling environment is there. And the reason why I said enabling environment, this is important. If the government or our regional governments had done today, have done exactly what had been done to the sort of welcoming, the hosting that we've done now, we would have been ahead. But time is not yet delayed. I'm happy that the government of Sierra Leone had hosted the West African and welcomed us here. And it is naturally a historical precedent that we look forward for, and we thank the government. Today we had a very fruitful meeting with them. We had their unreserved commitment and support to see to it that this initiative for not just Sierra Leone, but for the rest of West Africa is successful.
You spoke about young people, belonging or involving themselves when it comes into national development in every each countries.
Yes.
And then you even said youth unemployment is not only in Sierra Leone, which I agree.
Yeah.
And but according to President Julius Maada Bio, he says the problem is because the youth does not have the skills, you know, and which, you know, prompted him to create a tech vogue where young people will have themselves in and ensure that they learn some skills. Do you think that's the problem why the unemployment rate is quite very high? Because young people don't want to go to farming, young people don't want to, you know, belong to tailoring,
yes.
carpentry, all of these things. Do you think that's the problem?
Yes, well, look, if we are to be able to address the problem, we have to holistically look at it, the challenges itself. I think the president is very right in saying what he said. And I think it is also a step in the right direction. But when you also look at it at the same time, it complements what we are doing. So what the president effectively and the government has done to create that enabling environment, if the enabling environment wasn't there, we will not be here today. So I think the first step has been there. And what we did now is that since the government as an enabler create that enabling environment, we the youth, both myself and yourself, we are having debates now across to look at initiatives that is able to turn the demographic dividend of that. So by engaging youths, I just mentioned one thing or two, the vessels that will be provided here financed through these initiatives. The training will be both local and international cooperation. I am going to be calling upon my mandate as the chairman of the West African Youth Confederation of West African Youth on the Japanese and the other global stakeholders. So we will see that young Sierra Leoneans will potentially be trained by the Americans, by the Japanese in these areas. Through some kind of a multi-stakeholders collaborative approach, government of Sierra Leone will create that enabling environment for us. Youth can now access how to become pilots and skippers on vessels going into high seas. At the same time also, we will be able to see youth in Sierra Leone being trained in line with international best standard practices on the packaging. When you look at this packaging, you can see it is very much in line with WHO requirements. So the same thing, the youths of Sierra Leone, as in what you were previously referring to, what the president had initially made. I think this initiative is also another one that youth of Sierra Leone and youth of West Africa would be able to benefit from it. The common solution will have to be a holistic, multi-stakeholders approach that will be able to bring about sustainable development for the youth of our
Are these young people, you said, ready to go into involving themselves into the skills, like you spoke about fishing?
Yes.
Are they ready to go in there? Because I'm sure you've walked to so many parts in Africa, and
yes.
you've mingled around young people, I'm sure.
Well, look, the youth, I think across with advent of technology, we know our potentials. You know, the Africa Rising. When you look at it, they know if your continent, your countries are losing a combined $2.7 billion on an industry where that could have come back to ourselves, the youth. I mean, if an average Sierra Leonean, we mentioned about 800,000 there, about an average, were to be earning somewhere about $300, $400 after tax every single month in Sierra Leone here. I think the youth understand this potential. They know that it is there. Some of the biggest challenges is not the case of youths don't want to get into this creation of these employment opportunities, etc. But we actually suffered some challenges. Challenges that is access to resources, access to financing, and access to the markets.
Sure. That means the 2019 theme for the International Youth Day is quite important, which says safe spaces for young people.
Absolutely.
Are these spaces safe or created for young people?
Absolutely right. That's right. That's very true. Because the youths are the future leaders, and I think that for us to become a competitively regional economy, the youth need to leapfrog and take advantage of the economic gains and political stability that we have. Sierra Leone has, you know, mind you, Sierra Leone used to be at the forefront of Africa's education. You know, for a Bay College, our former leaders across West Africa used to come to Sierra Leone. And I think what we have now, this 2019, is an evolutionary process of where we were before And we've then gone to an era where lessons had been learned. Our generation is saying, with the advent of this particular television channel, I think that is a manifestation that the youth are taking responsibility in terms of moving forward. So yes, you are right. We are looking forward to ensure that through the Confederation of West African Youth, this initiative becomes a more sustainable initiative, so that the subsequent year, we will then launch the Seaway supermarket chain, where the youth will create our own supermarket chains to be able to ensure that the youths are also employed in our own managed supermarket enterprises, etc. And you mentioned about initiative that is to do with farming. Yeah. We know these things. Myself, I am very much around the board of Farm Track, which is India's third largest tractor manufacturing companies. There is a program that we already have at the back end, which again, through my foundation, we are working with the Confederation of West African Youth to implement that program also. Look, youth do want to engage into national economic activities, but without resources. For example, 50 years ago, to go with a hoe and an axe to go into the farm is no more ideal for our generation. Yeah. Mechanized tractor systems. So we know our challenges, and as part of Seaway going forward, these are some of the initiatives that we will do to consistently impact and to be active in our own economies. Foreign actors had been into since the post-independence, almost quite a lot of our national GDP goes out of the country. Our income earners are going outside. But we have no problem with investment coming into Africa. Of course, we are in a global village, but there is the need for a balance. And that balance also means that to be able to empower our own youth, to have access to finance, access to resources, and access to international market. Before, the biggest problem used to be, for example, along with World Trade Organization, goods of origin discrimination factor. And I'm hopeful, I am very, 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 very hopeful that with the next 2 years, we will be able to now see fish being produced across West African countries, fish being packaged from Sierra Leone. The next day, they are in supermarket chains in London or in New York. Look, it has been done. Ethiopia has done it in the areas of, let's say, the rose flowers, the roses. We've seen the teas, and we've seen the coffees coming from that part of the world all over the world. I believe that this is our time also as you to be able to engage into these economic activities and be able to ensure that livelihoods and lives are becoming more and more better for ourselves, and hope can remain within our region also.
Sure, it's quite very significant because, like you said, young people need to involve when it comes to international development, taking the center stage in order to ensure, while we are moving, we involving ourselves in international development. So what is the main aim and objective of the Confederation of West Africa youth project?
Okay, so the past 2 years, it focuses on the unsung heroes, the people like this television station. When I was in Gambia, I wasn't aware of it. Today, Gambians will know that this particular TV station is almost, if not 100%, manned by youth. The management structure is unprecedentedly excellent, okay? Driven by young people to be able to compete with global players in the media industry. Hey, guess what? The feature of those kind of initiatives is that potentially now, as part of a partnership with Seaway, we should be able to project AYC into global capital markets. Who knows? The next time it could be that this particular company will be floated in the Nigeria Stock Exchange. When Mark Zuckerberg came in with his Facebook, we did not know. They projected it, it went through an IPO, it is worth billions. The same thing can be replicated to IYC. Why can they not do that? So the Confederation of West African Youth have two components. One component is to be able to recognize and reward the unsung heroes across our region, to motivate them and to let the world know that we also have movers and shakers within that sector. Okay? And the other component of the Seaway is to create enterprise development capabilities, the dynamic capabilities of our industry, to indigenize it, to ensure that Sierra Leoneans are now, the youth, through this initiative, are being given the resources, the best of possible boats, the facilities to be able to compete with international players in the area of fishing. Through my position at the farm track tractors, for example, to look at what collaborative ways that we can do to be able to empower the youth in terms of creating a cooperative within the farming sector. And it goes to other areas. We will be able to work together to create restaurants, etc. So these are two components of Seaway where we are working. One is recognizing and rewarding the movers and shakers of the youth populace across our region. The other part is the enterprise development capability within our economies to ensure that we create sustainable investments for the youth, but driven by the youth, of course.
Because it's quite good, you know, because looking at most youths now these days, they prefer going to the formal job instead of them going to the informal job. Indeed. And that is quite alarming in Africa, you know, which sometimes that's why I want to ask, why does young people believe to leave their country, going to Europe,
absolutely. Well, look, it is a dream that is sold to them, and unfortunately, look, there is no prouder beings than the Africans. Africans love their region. The talent, the raw talent in our continent is unprecedented. And majority of these talents are naturally pushed on two factors. First factor is the brain drain. The second factor is the economic, socio-political and economic factors. The first one that I mentioned, which is the brain drain, our best of the best will be graduating from Forabe or University of Lagos or University of Ghana or indeed Gambia across the continent. Our best of the best brains are usually taken into overseas. Why? Because that puts us onto the second part, which is the socio-economic and political factor. When you look at the income earning factor, disposable household incomes are not very much higher stage. So people would rather go outside and work there. That's one factor. The fact that unemployment is at unprecedented level, this is the only reason why these youngsters are taking very dangerous journeys to go into western part of the world. Some of them risking their life crossing into the Mediterranean. You know, my heart goes out to every single one person and the family who had lost a family member through this journey. I feel for them. I'm an African and I understand our challenges. But I think the European Union also had the responsibility to play their part in this. The political position in itself is not going to bring about the solution. We have initiatives. These people love their continent. Well, let's work through a holistic program that ensures that there is employment and income earning generation activities for these youngsters here in our continent. They will not even go there. They will go to Europe on holidays. Yeah. But while we're saying this, let's also address another matter, which is the third factor. The rules of origin, which is discriminatory in line with world trade itself. I mean, I think that's another factor that we, the international community, ought to look at. This is not just a political, socio-economic and political problem within Africa. Oh, well, the governments are not providing employment for them. Oh, well, youths don't want to stay in Africa. That's not just the problem alone.
There's no space for the young people.
Yes. Some of the problems is that if a youth decided to, a Sierra Leonean artist decided to do a wood carving or wanted to make a fish from here and send it to their family in Europe to sell it for them so that they bring the money back for them, the European authorities would say, well, you know, this cannot come here. It has to go through some kind of certification process. That process itself has an underlying discriminatory factor there, which is rules of origin factor. So beyond the Doha round, I believe that the world should look at some of these factors to now look at it favorably in the part of the youth. If all these are addressed, so our best of the best talents will stay here in Africa because income earning will now increase. This fishing initiative that we bring in here, whereas before the governments were losing 2.7 billion. Now let's assume that we have a 5-year plan to claw that back, to stop all the illegal fishing. We're now going to get back $2.7 billion of our own resources, that is not aid, to ensure that creation of employment opportunities are staying within our continent. Okay? the European supply chains and international global supply chains can also equally benefit from this, because we are producing by the African themselves, sending it out to the global market also. So the key factor really is that it's not an ideal situation where the African themselves want to go out of the continent, my brother. Is the conditions that is pushing them. That push factor, I hope that compassion will be extended to our international partners to have a collaborative solution to this.
The Confederation of African, because the Confederation of West African Youth, are you guys all catering for elite people, you know, leaving those who feel that they have been left out, they have been deprived, you know, from of them belong when it comes to international development?
Absolutely, absolutely. You know, the fact that we had the ECOWAS sub-regional agreement, and I'm happy that the leadership are there in terms of supporting ECOWAS, the sustainability of ECOWAS. We do not see, our problems are common. Problems of Gambian youth is exactly the same problem as that what is happening in Sierra Leone, and equally the same thing in Ghana. Throughout my investment life, I am a development economist and an investment banker at the same time. I'm investing a lot, from aviation sector to various other sectors also. Real estate also is one of the sectors that I am investing in. But like I say to you, today I happen to have my lunch here in the youth canteen. Sat down with the youth, and these are some of the first-hand experience that you have. Yes, we need a collaborative, holistic solution that is inclusive enough. The inclusivity is the word, and I think that's what you touch on. Where you don't have a sense of belonging in be it national or regional development, it had been very demotivating factor. And we believe that through what we have in here, the support of the media to enlighten people, we should be able to ensure that all these are addressed also.
It's going to be a series of activities, I'm sure. Tomorrow, which is the D-Day, and then also run through till Sunday as well here in Sierra Leone. So what are we expecting to see? And I'm sure it's going to be awards as well, which will be given out to young people, you know, for their contribution. I'm sure there's any specific things you're looking for in terms of awarding these young guys. Yes.
So yes, they've earned it. As I said before, these are some of the unsung heroes that society would not otherwise know at the African level. And what we did is we've done a lot of research. We came to know who they are. And yes, there would be some achievers in that. That will also include few Sierra Leoneans. Sierra Leonean youths are some of those winners also.
Because I'm sure, because I wanted to ask whether or not Sierra
Leoneans have done it. I mean, they've done it. Like I said, typical example was one of these anti-corruption commissioners and Francis a presidential spokesman, and a lot has happened. You know, a young man who created this kind of a media empire.
The ambassador himself, ambassador
himself. Yeah. I mean, it is precedented. So without this kind of platform, we would not have known. Because all the other part of the world, it is always about the Oscars and all the other ones. And we, Africa, had always been overshadowed. And I think this time around, the Confederation of West African Youth is actually better positioned as of tomorrow to compliment and reward these unsung heroes so that the world also knows about them.
How many of them?
Well, I think we will leave that for the...
because probably I just want to ask how many Sierra Leoneans who will be awarded tomorrow, because it's very important for
we will leave that for the viewers. we don't want to spoil that play yet.
So it means other guests will be coming in today.
Indeed. The invitation was is handed over across beyond ECOWAS. The former Minister of Foreign Affairs for Central Africa was also supposed to be part of it. So yeah, dignitaries are going to be coming across the continent. I myself, I had to come through a very, very difficult journey through all the way through Casablanca, London, coming back here. It had been really, but it is worth it. It is worth it.
So coming to Sierra Leone. And quickly, I'm sure, before I allow you to rest a bit and we'll go for a break. Since you came, how you've been seeing Sierra Leone? I'm sure you've been meeting with a lot of young people, you know, interacting. You came here at AYV as well.
Yes. I mean, I think myself, from my own personal perspective and experience, the Confederation of West African Youth had opened my eyes. Don't forget, prior to this particular event and prior to my coming, I was previously invited through the Ministry of Aviation and Transport, based on my aviation investment. I have an investment called Fly Africa, the airline. I did not come. Sierra Leone, prior to this, it is different when you are on the ground. Very positive prospects are in the country, but you would not have known these things. This idea of Ebola and all this thing has overshadowed a lot. But when I got in, you go to Lumley Beach.
Yeah.
Along that lane, you can see the potential economic growth of this country. Sierra Leone has got it has ticked all the boxes to become one of the most competitive regional economic powers within the region. You know, the viewers need to, especially our international viewers, and most importantly the ones in the capital market, look, don't go by what you see out there. Come into the country and see this potential. I've seen a lot of potentials, and I am also going to invest in this country, the rest also of that, as a result of what I've seen here.
Sure, because it's quite good, and I'm sure
the people are nice, excellent boards.
I must say thanks to you for that. So I'm sure you've watched too, and you've seen so many young people. So do you see them want to invest in their country?
Absolutely, absolutely. I think Sierra Leone, you know, this is where we are now. This studio is a prime example of that. Sierra Leone has certainly leapfrogged, especially the youth. I will encourage other Sierra Leonean youths across to come and take advantage of the opportunities that Sierra Leone has to offer. What is more promising for me is the passion in the youth since my arrival. The youths are not, they want to exploit these opportunities. They're not looking outward, they're looking more inward, which is a very positive step.
Sure, which is good. Yeah. All right, and let's take some break and allow you to rest a bit. He's Prince Ebrahim. He's a chairman for the Confederation of West African Youth, and he's here in Sierra Leone as they'll be hosting the first ever Confederation of West African Youth Leadership Forum 2019, and also awards will be given to deserving young people across Africa as well. We'll take a short break. When we come back, open the phone line. The line is 025-271-959.
Check it out. Sierra Juice. Taste of Salo.
And that's for real, Check it out. Here we go.
Now when you're feeling thirsty, to quench your thirst, drink Sierra Juice. And when you're chilling with your friends, to quench your thirst, drink Sierra Juice. Now when you're chilling at a party, chilling with a hardy, drink Sierra Juice. And no denying, Sierra Juice is the best, the best. Sierra Juice. Sierra Juice. So refreshing, so refresh, Sierra Juice. Sierra Juice. So refreshing.
Sierra Juice. Taste of Salo.
Tea is an art only mastered by a few, and the master of them all, Merrill J. Fernando, invites you to tea. He selects the finest tea grown, processed, and packaged from Sri Lanka to bring you Dilmah Pure Ceylon tea. No compromise in freshness, flavor, taste, and satisfaction. That's why Dilmah is for lovers of tea. Dilmah tea for lovers of tea.
All right, welcome back from the break. The show is this day on YB Television on Channel 30 and on the radio on 101.6 FM. We are discussing about the first ever conference to be used here in Sierra Leone, which is the Confederation of West Africa Youth Leadership Awards 2019 here in Sierra Leone. All right, quickly, Mr. Chairman, we're wrapping up now. And so, what do you think Sierra Leoneans should expect after tomorrow?
Well, it certainly is an achievement. It is an unprecedented achievement for Sierra Leone to host this year, and I am hoping that not just Sierra Leoneans, but the wider international community need to understand that Sierra Leone is business as usual now, moving forward. So it is open for businesses. They have a stable government. They have a very bubbling youth culture. The youth are very strong in the economy. I will advise anyone to exploit these opportunities that the country ought to offer. Yes.
Well, sure. Before letting you go quickly, how do you see AYV? What's your take about the African Young Voices Media Empire, AYV? You're here in today. Yes. We're doing this interview. Well, look,
it becomes pretty much a voice for the voiceless. And I think with some sort of integration, once we triangulate this process, AYV has the potential of becoming what a BBC of Africa would be, but for our generation. You will understand that in as much as anyone will look at the BBC as the CNN, the overall focus, the voices of our generation has to be African. African solutions to African problems. So potentially, I think this particular TV channel has a potential of growing even beyond this country, but across the continent. Most importantly, having access to international global capital markets. This institution should be recapitalized. Investors should come in to ensure that these become a feature for the voices of African youth. What you set up here is not about Sierra Leone. It says Young African Voices. Sure. So my commendation to them. Thank you very much. Keep it up.
Thank you. Chairman.
Thank you.
Chairman Prince.
Thank you.
Ebrahim, thank you very much for being to Sierra Leone.
Thank you very much.
We do appreciate you so much for coming to Sierra Leone and also giving us Sierra Leone the opportunity to host this wonderful conference. I'm sure this one will not be the
last. No. I'm very humble. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
But it has been this day on AYV Television. We'll come back to you just like I know you want to go.
Yes.
but sure, we're already closed now. And the show is this day on AYV Television, channel 33, and on the radio on 1.6 FM. I've been your presenter, David Yemu Wilson. Until Monday for another fresh edition of your News and Current Affairs show. Many thanks to the production and technical team, especially my producer Marina Terry. Till then, have a blessed day, good weekend. Bye for now.
You're watching AYV Television.